On the day I proposed, my girlfriend of 5 years was holding hands with my best buddy. I'm sorry, Sincere. I'm in love with Ethan. Just as I was about to be drowned in ridicule, Isabelle Reed, the renowned aloof genius painter, took the engagement ring from my hand. Her eyes were red as she begged me to give her a chance. For 2 whole years, Isabelle relentlessly pursued me, treating me with the utmost tenderness. She healed my heartbreak, and I naturally fell in love with her. We walked down the aisle, until one day at a family dinner I arrived late and overheard her talking to her sister about me. To make Ethan happy. Are you really willing to spend the rest of your life with someone you don't love? Isabelle's voice was cold, devoid of any emotion. The day Ethan gets his divorce, I'll stage a scene to have Sincere caught cheating in public, and then I'll divorce him. The illusion of happiness shattered. But Isabelle, I'm the only one who has the right to say the word divorce. I was late to the family dinner because of traffic, and by the time I arrived, the Reed family had already gathered. Before I even walked in the door, I heard the conversation between Isabelle and her sister Catherine. Isabelle, you've been married to Sincere for 2 years now. To make Ethan happy, are you really willing to spend the rest of your life with someone you don't love? I stopped in my tracks. Before I could even process the meaning of her words, Isabelle's cold, emotionless voice came through. Don't worry, Ethan is getting a divorce soon. I won't have to keep up this act to prevent Sincere from trying to win him over anymore. The day Ethan gets his divorce, I'll stage a scene to have Sincere caught cheating in public, and then I'll divorce him. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my heart feeling like it was being squeezed by an iron fist, suffocating me. The sweet marriage I thought I'd had for 2 years was all just an act, and everyone at this family dinner knew about it. I was the only one being played for a fool. But you've been husband and wife for 2 years. Can you really bring yourself to treat Sincere this way? Isabelle frowned, not answering immediately. But soon, her gaze became firm again. When we actually get to the divorce, I'll compensate him well financially. I clenched my fists. My first instinct was to run. Why does everyone I love deceive me and treat me with such contempt? After graduating from university, I was betrayed by my first love, Beatrice, at my own proposal. She stood there, holding hands with Ethan, turning me into a clueless fool, a cuckold who didn't even know it. The classmates I'd invited to support me all looked at me with mockery in their eyes. But then Isabelle suddenly appeared, took the ring from my hand in front of everyone, and begged me to give her a chance. After that, Isabelle pursued me relentlessly for 2 years, slowly healing my heartbreak. She did it until I truly fell in love with her, and we walked down the aisle. Now I see it wasn't a rescue at all, but a long premeditated deception. A waiter who had approached without me noticing asked, "Mr. Marshall, why are you standing at the door and not coming in?" The people inside immediately looked toward the entrance, and Isabelle shot up from her seat, looking nervous. "Sincere, when did you get here?" I forced a smile and walked in, ignoring the momentary pallor that washed over her face. "The traffic was bad. I just arrived." "Why? Were you talking about something I'm not supposed to hear?" The tension on Isabelle's face vanished. She linked her arm through mine intimately, just like always. "My art exhibition opens tomorrow. We were just talking about that, nothing important. You must be hungry after driving for so long. Look, I ordered all your favorite dishes." Isabelle's parents and sister teased her for doting on her husband, and she shyly buried her head in my chest. But a bitter taste filled my mouth, and I could barely maintain that final, decent smile. After dinner, Isabelle, having had a couple of glasses of wine, drunkenly wrapped her arms around my neck as we walked to the car. "Honey, in 3 days, I'm throwing a party on a cruise ship. You have to be there 3 days from now." The exact day Ethan and Beatrice were finalizing their divorce, and the day, as she'd just said at dinner, that she planned to frame me for cheating. I asked her deliberately, "Why a party in 3 days? Is there a special reason?" Isabelle answered without hesitation, of course. "It's to celebrate a gust of wind seemed to sober her up a little. She changed her tune and said to me with a bright smile, "Of course, it's to celebrate the end of my exhibition and to reward my wonderful husband for all his support. So honey, you're the guest of honor. Promise me you'll come, okay?" Isabelle tightened her arms around my neck, her expression serious, as if she wouldn't let go until I agreed. I silently made a decision. Then I managed a bitter smile. "All right, I promise." The next morning, Isabelle left for her art exhibition. Isabelle was a genius painter, and every one of her exhibitions was packed. I didn't go in person, but I could already see her paintings all over social media. As I scrolled through the artwork, it all started to feel increasingly familiar. One series of oil paintings titled Portraits depicted individual human features with meticulous brushwork. But if you mentally assembled the features, you'd realize they formed Ethan Granger's face. Others might not notice, but for me, who once considered him my best friend, it was unmistakable. And in her recent landscapes, the subjects were always a play on his name, Ethan Granger. A sprawling grange here, a sun-drenched garden there. It was all for him. My hand holding the phone trembled. I couldn't help but remember a time when I was watching her paint and jokingly asked if she could paint me. But Isabelle, who was usually so compliant with my wishes, had frowned for the first time. She said her paintings had soul, that they were for conveying emotion, not for wasting time on portraits. So, it wasn't that she refused to paint people, it was that she refused to let anyone but Ethan appear in her work. Many art professionals attended the exhibition, praising her work. A reporter started interviewing her with a microphone. All of this was broadcast live to my phone. The reporter asked, "Miss Reed, the overall color palette of your work this time is much brighter and more vibrant than before. Is there a story behind this?" Isabelle gracefully took the microphone, a smile unconsciously blooming on her elegant, calm face. "You've all noticed. To be honest, this exhibition is for a dear friend who is about to get a divorce. He was very unhappy in the wrong marriage, and his other half wasn't his true love. Now that he's finally free, I used these bright, luminous elements to celebrate his new beginning." The crowd murmured in admiration, and the reporter laughed. "You and this friend must be very close, to be able to empathize with her so deeply." "Yes, we grew up together. We're as close as can be." "I'm so envious that Miss Reed has such a wonderful best friend." Isabelle didn't reply, just smiled faintly. Everyone assumed the inseparable friend she spoke of was a woman, but I knew she was clearly talking about Ethan. A short while later, Isabelle called me. "Sincere, so many friends came to the exhibition. It's exhausting greeting everyone. How was your day? Have you eaten?" I just gave a soft because in the background noise, I heard Ethan's voice. Ethan called for her, and Isabelle quickly made an excuse to hang up. Then, as if remembering something, she asked tentatively, "Sincere, you remember what I told you last night, right? You'll be on time for the cruise party, won't you?" Even when she was swamped with work, she didn't forget her scheme to frame me in 3 days. All of it so she could be with Ethan without any scandal. A wave of bitterness washed over me. I said in a low voice, "Yes, I haven't forgotten." Just as I hung up with Isabelle, a message popped up on my phone. "Mr. Marshall, everything has been arranged according to your instructions." I typed a reply, "Proceed as planned in 3 days." "Isabelle, at the party where you plan to frame me in 3 days, I've prepared a surprise for you too. After all, I'm the only one who has the right to say the word divorce." After putting down my phone, I saw a flood of unread emails on my computer. They were all from my former classmates and senior colleagues from medical school. They were all asking the same strange question: why did Ethan Granger's latest published research look so much like a scrapped research paper of mine? I opened the attachment with Ethan's paper, and my heart sank with every line I read. It wasn't just similar, it was practically a carbon copy. I immediately hailed a cab and went to the exhibition. Ethan was at the gallery, elegantly explaining Isabelle's paintings to the guests. He had a graceful smile on his face, but when his eyes met mine at the entrance, it twisted into a sneer. I walked up and grabbed his wrist. "Ethan, what have you done? Why did you plagiarize my research?" Ethan was my university roommate in the same department, and my best buddy. Unfortunately, he was academically mediocre. When we both applied for a position with our mentor, he was rejected, and he gave up on serious academic pursuits after that. The year we graduated, I had a research project that I didn't publish because of some errors in the experimental data, so I switched topics. But I didn't want to waste all that effort, so I kept the discarded paper at home, planning to revisit it later. How did it end up in Ethan's hands? Isabel's name immediately flashed in my mind. Only Isabelle and I had access to that manuscript, so it had all been planned from the very beginning. When I was betrayed by both my first love, Beatrice, and Ethan, she had appeared like a ray of light and saved me. But yesterday I learned she married me to make Ethan happy. Today I learned she had taken my life's work to pave the way for Ethan's career. I thought I had finally found true love after all the bitterness, but it turned out I had been played for a fool from the very beginning. A furious shout came from behind me. "Sincere, let go of him." Isabelle rushed over and tore my hand from Ethan's wrist. Her sharp nails left several shocking bloody scratches on the back of my hand. But right now all of Isabelle's attention was on the hand I had just been holding. "Sincere, are you crazy? Ethan is a doctor. Don't you know how precious our hands are in our professions?" Isabelle glared at me, her eyes not those of a lover, but of an enemy. I froze for a moment. Of course I knew how important our hands were to our professions as a medical researcher and painter. But not long after we got married, Isabelle, with those hands that had only ever held a paintbrush, had learned to cook complex French cuisine from a master chef. Just because I loved French food. I was so touched by everything she did for me that after I found out, I never let her cook or do housework again, leaving it all to our housekeeper. Even when the housekeeper was on leave, I did everything myself, unwilling to let Isabelle tire herself out in the slightest. But now, for Ethan, she had hurt me without a second thought. Isabelle noticed the scratches on the back of my hand and her expression softened slightly. "I didn't mean to. If you have something to say, just say it. Why did you have to get physical with Ethan? Come on, I'll take you to get that bandaged." I took a step back, enduring the stinging pain in my hand, and asked her, my voice filled with hurt, "Isabelle, my research paper. Why did it show up in Ethan's research report?" Isabelle's eyes darted away. "What paper? That's your medical field. How would I know? Sincere, did you attack Ethan just because of a paper? There must be a misunderstanding." Even now, she was still playing dumb. I shook my head and turned to leave. Isabelle abandoned a pouting Ethan and hurried after me. She softened her tone, insisting on taking me to get my hand bandaged. For the next 2 days, Isabelle's attitude was perfectly sincere. She even skipped work to accompany me to have the dressing on my wound changed. She was only doing all this because she was afraid I would change my mind and not show up for her cruise party. On the day of the party, the cruise ship was decorated with banners, all congratulating Ethan on his divorce. Isabelle explained to me, "Sincere, it also happens to be the day Ethan's divorce is finalized. I thought we could celebrate it all together. You don't mind, do you?" I shook my head, not bothering to call out her clumsy lie. Most of the people at the party were friends of Isabelle and Ethan. I sat to the side, unable to join in their conversations. As the sky darkened, Isabelle approached me hesitantly with a glass of wine. I didn't need to guess to know it was drugged. "Sincere, you look a little tired. Why don't you have a calming drink and go rest in the room?" I took the glass and looked at her deeply. "Isabelle, do you remember the vows you made to me when we got married?" Because I had been betrayed in my last relationship, Isabelle had made a special promise to me on our wedding day. She said she would love me for a lifetime and never betray me. Isabelle bit her lip, a flash of pity on her face, and nodded. "Of course, I remember." I smiled without a word and tilted my head back to down the drink. Isabelle suddenly reached out to stop me. "No, Sincere, you've had a sore throat recently. You probably shouldn't drink." But she was a step too late. The strong liquor went down my throat. I patted her hand reassuringly. "It's just one drink. You don't need to worry so much." A moment later, I rubbed my temples as my head began to spin. Isabel's eyes turned red, and she looked like she was about to cry. I gave her a flat look, scoffing inwardly. Isabelle, I have a bit of a headache. I think I'll go get some sea air. I'll go with you. Isabelle helped me to my wobbly feet, but the next second, Ethan's voice came from behind us. Isabelle, there you are. Can you spend some time with me? Isabelle froze, looking back and forth between me and Ethan, torn. Go on. I want to be alone for a bit. I made the choice for her, pulling my arm away and walking toward the deck alone. After I left, Ethan buried his face in Isabelle's neck and complained, I ate too much sashimi. My stomach really hurts. Isabelle rubbed his stomach, her eyes constantly glancing toward the deck. Just then the cruise director ran in, pale-faced and stumbling. Miss Reed, it's terrible, Mr. Marshall just fell into the sea and was swept away by a huge wave. Isabelle's hand trembled, and she violently pushed Ethan away, jumping to her feet. What did you say? Who fell into the sea? The director wiped sweat from his brow, explaining frantically, it was Mr. Marshall. By the time we heard the splash, he was already in the water. When we rushed over, a huge wave came and swept him away. I'm afraid he's gone for good. Before he could finish, Isabelle bolted toward the deck like a gust of wind. She frantically searched for any sign of me, but all she saw were the crew members, desperately trying to recover Syncere's body from the vast, dark sea. Isabelle stood frozen, her lips trembling uncontrollably as she muttered, Impossible. This is impossible. Ethan followed shortly after, looking somewhat surprised by the scene. He clearly hadn't expected Sincere to disappear from his life so easily. Wiping the faint smile from his lips, Ethan stepped forward and patted Isabelle's shoulder comfortingly. Isabelle, don't be too sad. Sincere may be gone, but we who are still alive have to carry on. As if waking from a dream, Isabelle shoved Ethan away, grabbing his shoulders and screaming, What are you talking about? Sincere isn't dead. Don't you ever let me hear you say another bad word about Sincere. Ethan stared at Isabelle, dumbfounded. Isabelle, what's wrong with you? You've never spoken to me so harshly. I'm just worried about you. You've misunderstood. But Isabelle completely ignored him. She ran frantically to the deck railing and, facing the vast empty sea, screamed my name. Sincere, where are you? Can you hear me? Come back, stop playing games with me just then, a crew member shouted. We found something. Isabelle turned with a look of joy, pushing through the gathering crowd. You found Sincere? But the joy in her eyes quickly died. The crewman awkwardly handed over my wallet. Miss Reed, we recovered Mr. Marshall's wallet. Here. Isabelle took the wallet with a trembling hand. The moment she opened it and saw the photo of her and me tucked inside, the tears she'd been holding back finally streamed down her face. In the center of the wallet was a letter. Isabelle opened it and saw it was from me. Isabelle, we've known each other for so many years, but with our busy careers, I never had the time to write you a letter. Our second wedding anniversary is coming up, and I wanted to write to you to thank you for coming into my life during its darkest, most devastating time, and for helping me step by step out of the shadows, allowing me to believe in love again. Even though I recently found out it was all a lie, a scheme you concocted for Ethan, I still want to thank you. I believe that in the time we were together you must have had some genuine affection for me. Since you decided to have me caught cheating to fulfill your dream with Ethan, how could I bear to disappoint all your hard work? By the time you read this letter, I trust you will have successfully divorced me. So, I congratulate you again on getting what you wanted, and I hope you can grow old with the one you love. But from now on, you will no longer have me in your life. Isabelle's hand was shaking so much she could barely hold the letter. She kept shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. How could this happen? Sincere, you knew all along? A few crew members nearby were sighing as they looked out at the deep sea. There hasn't been an accident on this ship for years. How could Mr. Marshall have fallen in accidentally? I know, he was such a good man. What a shame. Isabelle stared at them blankly, because she was the only one who knew the real reason I had fallen into the sea. Unable to control herself any longer, Isabelle began to hit her own head with her hands, crying out in regret. "It's all my fault. How could I have given him that drink? If I hadn't gotten him drunk, he wouldn't have lost his footing and fallen in. Sincere, I was wrong. What can I do to bring you back alive?" "Isabelle, calm down." Ethan rushed forward and stopped the frantically self-harming Isabelle. Isabelle just pushed him away, telling him to get lost. Finally, Isabelle collapsed from the overwhelming emotional roller coaster and fainted. Isabelle remained unconscious in the hospital for 2 full days. The first thing she did when she woke up was ask for Sincere. "Sincere? Where is Sincere? He's not really dead, is he?" As the young nurse changing Isabelle's for looked on in confusion, an assistant rushed in. "Miss Reed, this is bad. You need to see the news." She handed her phone to Isabelle. The top story was a video from the family dinner showing her plotting to frame me. The footage also included the shot of me standing outside the door, hearing every single word. Isabelle looked at the photo of me in disbelief, clutching her chest in agony. "Sincere, so you already knew the truth that day. And I was still so foolishly acting in front of you. I'm so sorry." Isabelle didn't try to stop the news from spreading. Instead, she allowed it to go viral, as if punishing herself. Within a month, both Isabelle and Ethan's reputations were in tatters due to the affair. Even the story of my first love, Beatrice, cheating on me with Ethan at my proposal was dug up and exposed. Suddenly, all 3 of them were caught in a vortex of public condemnation. I learned about this series of events in the States 3 months after my jump into the sea. Everyone thought I had died, my body lost to the ocean. But in reality, I had left the cruise ship early, arranging for a private speedboat to pick me up. As for the fall and the letter in the wallet, it was all an illusion I had carefully crafted. Just a little parting gift for Isabelle. I chose to come to the States because my family's business is primarily overseas, and my parents and sister had already immigrated. Years ago, I chose not to follow them to take over the family business, opting instead to study medicine and stay in the country to be with Isabelle. Now that Isabelle was no longer worthy of that sacrifice, my decision to leave was swift and resolute. The TV was still showing news reports about Isabelle having a mental breakdown, acting erratically ever since losing her husband. I casually turned it off and drove to the hospital. After faking my death and moving abroad, I took a position at a private hospital owned by my sister Olivia, and continued to research the treatment of psychiatric disorders with my mentor. I had just sat down in my office to review some files when my sister video called me. "Sync, quick, I need your help." "What is it, sis? Slow down." My sister rested her forehead in her hand, her expression pained. "You know I'm trying to expand the business into medical equipment, right? That means I have to work with the Blackwood group, but their CEO, Victoria Blackwood, has been keeping a low profile lately. I can't seem to get a meeting with her. If even you can't get a meeting, what could I possibly do to help?" I was confused. My sister shook her head. "No, you can be a huge help." I did some digging, and it turns out Victoria has been busy with a sick relative, a little girl, and the child's illness is quite rare. "You've spent so many years in medical school. Can you think of anything, maybe take a look at the child's case?" Seeing my sister so stressed, I wasn't sure if I could help, but I decided to try. I agreed right away. "Okay, send me the child's case files. But just to be clear, there are many types of doctors. I can't guarantee this is in my area of expertise." As soon as I said that, a smile spread across my sister's face. "Great, that's all I needed to hear." She then hung up. The files arrived quickly. After a detailed review, I realized the child's symptoms were primarily psychological. This happened to align perfectly with the research I was conducting with my mentor. I immediately dove into the materials and wrote up my thoughts and suggestions in an email to Victoria Blackwood. That evening, Victoria replied to my email, sincerely inviting me to her home to discuss it in detail. When I arrived at the Blackwood residence the next day, I was immediately struck by the villa's decor. It was clear the owner had excellent taste. The grounds were filled with flowers I had never seen before, and the entire villa was filled with a fresh, natural floral scent. A housekeeper quickly led me inside. When I first saw Victoria Blackwood, I almost thought I had the wrong person. In my mind, a successful businesswoman who had built such a large enterprise like Victoria Blackwood should be at least middle-aged. But the woman before me was exceptionally beautiful, her face full of youthful vitality. She was clearly my age, perhaps even younger. She smiled and extended her hand to shake mine. "You must be Mr. Marshall." "Hello, I'm Victoria Blackwood." "Miss Blackwood, it's a pleasure. I'm Sincere Marshall." After speaking with Victoria for a while, I learned that the sick child was her niece, not her daughter. Victoria had been so focused on her career over the years that she had never married the child, named Chloe, was her brother's daughter. A year ago, Victoria's brother and sister-in-law were killed in a car accident. Chloe was in the car at the time, but her parents had shielded her with their own bodies at the last second. The result was that Chloe had witnessed her parents' deaths. From that day on, she was so traumatized that she stopped speaking and smiling. For the past year, Victoria had personally taken care of Chloe, raising her as if she were her own flesh and blood. But she had never been able to erase the shadow from the little girl's heart. Victoria sighed. "The doctors say that if Chloe continues like this, she may lose the ability to speak for the rest of her life. So I've been visiting famous doctors everywhere, trying to get her treated as soon as possible, but with no success." "Sincere, I read the email you sent yesterday very carefully. You said that you and your mentor are also researching treatment plans for patients with this type of selective mutism. Does that mean you think there's a chance Chloe can be cured?" Hearing Chloe's tragic story, I felt a deep ache in my heart and became even more determined to help her. I patiently explained to Victoria, "Chloe's condition is a post-traumatic selective mutism. Compared to congenital conditions, the hope for recovery is much greater." "Where is she now? May I see her?" Victoria led me to Chloe's room, but as soon as we entered, we saw Chloe standing on a table, having opened the window, about to jump. I lunged forward and wrapped my arms around her waist, pulling her back. Victoria was horrified. "Chloe, what are you doing? Is there something you can't talk to your aunt about? Why would you try to take your own life?" I quickly stopped Victoria, asking her to leave me alone in the room with Chloe. After meeting my firm gaze, she bit her lip and nodded. After Victoria left, I looked at Chloe's pale little face and asked her seriously, "Chloe, can you tell Uncle Sincere? Were you doing that just now because of your parents?" Ever since Victoria's brother and sister-in-law passed away, no one had dared to mention them in front of the child, but Chloe's condition was now too severe. I had to try this approach to open her up. Sure enough, at the mention of her parents, Chloe's eyes instantly welled with tears. For the first time, she actively responded, nodding at me. Over the next few hours, I spoke with her at length about family and loss. Although she was very young, I could tell from her reactions that she was listening. This was a form of psychological intervention, but it had to be done gradually. 2 hours later, Chloe and I walked out of the room together. Victoria had been sitting anxiously in the living room, constantly looking our way. I gave Victoria a reassuring smile. "Don't worry, the child was just going through a difficult moment. But after our talk today, I believe her mindset has already started to change." Victoria breathed a sigh of relief. That's good. Then she reached out and hugged me. Her unique floral scent instantly enveloped me. "Sincere thank you. If you hadn't been here today, I really don't know what I would have done." I reached out and patted Victoria's back. As a single woman juggling a company and a child, she was already doing an amazing job. I thought to myself that it wasn't just for my sister anymore. I also wanted to do something for her and Chloe. Victoria and Chloe walked me out together. When we reached the villa's entrance, Chloe suddenly grabbed my sleeve, looking up at me with her big round eyes. "Uncle Sincere, will you come back tomorrow?" Victoria's eyes widened in pleasant surprise. "Chloe, you spoke, I was just as surprised." I quickly knelt down and said to Chloe, "Do you want Uncle Sincere to come?" "Yes, I do." That was the second sentence she had spoken in a year. Victoria and I looked at each other, and we both saw the joy in each other's eyes. I promised Chloe I would come back tomorrow, and that I would set aside 1 day a week to spend with her from then on. Finally, after 3 months of treatment, 6 months after I had faked my death, Chloe was completely transformed, no different from any other child her age. At the same time, my research on treating psychological disorders made a breakthrough. The moment the results were published, they caused a sensation in the medical community and earned recognition from many renowned experts. When Victoria heard the good news, she immediately invited me out to dinner to celebrate over this period. Victoria and I had become good friends who could talk about anything. Just as we were happily chatting, a familiar voice came from behind me. "Sincere, is that really you?" I turned around and saw travel-worn Isabelle standing before me. She looked much thinner, and though she wasn't even 30, there were faint strands of white in her hair. Seeing that it was really me, Isabelle couldn't hold back her tears. "Sincere, you're really alive. When I saw that research paper, I had a feeling it had to be you. I can't believe it's true. This is wonderful." She lunged forward to hug me, but I quickly sidestepped her, watching her with cold eyes. "Isabelle, you and I have nothing left to say to each other. No, Sincere, please listen to me. I know I was wrong. I shouldn't have schemed to frame you just to get a divorce. And that paper, Ethan just said he wanted to borrow it to have a look. I never thought he would steal your work. Believe me, I will do everything I can to make it right. Sincere, come home with me, please." I let out a cold laugh. "You were willing to sacrifice yourself and marry me just to make Ethan happy. Why are you looking for me now? Or should I say, how do you plan to use me to please Ethan this time?" Isabelle shook her head, vehemently denying it. Suddenly a figure rushed out and shoved me aside, positioning himself between me and Isabelle. The furious man was none other than Ethan. He squinted at me, his eyes growing more vicious. "Sincere, so you're not dead? Why didn't you die?" Isabelle, who was being blocked by him, heard this, immediately grabbed Ethan by the collar, and slapped him hard across the face. "Ethan, what nonsense are you spouting? How dare you wish Sincere was dead?" Ethan didn't answer her. He just slowly raised a hand to touch the cheek she had slapped, his expression dark and unreadable as he looked at me. "Yes, just like that. Isabelle used to do whatever I wanted. But it's because of you, Sincere. Ever since you died, she's been a different person. There's only room for you in her heart now. I'm going to kill you right now and put everything back the way it was." He pulled a knife from somewhere and lunged at me. "Don't!" Isabelle's sharp scream rang out as she grabbed the blade of Ethan's knife with her bare hands. "Sincere, don't worry about me. Just run," Isabelle yelled at me, beginning to struggle with Ethan. I quickly pulled Victoria away from the scene to protect her. The restaurant staff, after a moment of shock, immediately called the police. Isabelle and Ethan, exhausted from their fight, soon collapsed onto the floor and were carried away together by the police when they arrived. Aside from being shocked by the scene before me, I felt nothing else. In the end, it was Victoria who told me the outcome of Ethan and Isabelle's hospitalization. Because Isabelle had wrestled the knife away from him, Ethan had been stabbed several times in the abdomen. He didn't survive the emergency surgery and died that night. Isabelle, though she survived, was still in critical condition. Even if she recovered, she would face prison time for excessive self-defense. But to my surprise, things were far from over. Before coming to the restaurant to attack me, Ethan had compared my plagiarized paper with my current research and publicly accused me of plagiarism. Because he had published that plagiarized paper long ago, and now the dead can't testify, a number of his supporters emerged online. A large group of self-proclaimed righteous individuals launched a crusade against me, branding me a Frankenstein plagiarist and an academic fraud. Victoria called me. "Sincere, don't worry. Turn off your phone and TV, don't look at any news, just stay at home and leave the rest to me." I don't know what Victoria told my family, but my sister and parents all rushed home to be with me. They prevented me from accessing anything with an internet connection. After a week of agonizing waiting, the online harassment campaign was quelled. Victoria had gone to great lengths, even returning to our home country to interview many of my former teachers and classmates. She also used technical means to recover the original draft of my paper that I had saved on my old computer. With a mountain of evidence, she proved my innocence. The only plagiarist from start to finish had been Ethan. But the stressful week-long trip took its toll, and Victoria collapsed from exhaustion as soon as she returned to the States. When I rushed to her hospital room, I saw her lying alone in bed, struggling to reach a glass of water on the table. I hurried over, poured her a glass, and carefully helped her sit up to drink. Seeing Victoria looking so qiao-kui, with dark circles under her eyes, I was overwhelmed with gratitude. Victoria, you really didn't have to sacrifice so much for me. I truly don't know how I can ever thank you. Victoria took a sip of water and looked at me with a smile, raising an eyebrow. If you don't know how to thank me, you could always consider marrying me. My hand trembled, and I stumbled over my words. Well, what did you say? This time Victoria sat up straight. She took my hand and said with utmost seriousness, sincere, I'm not joking. To be honest, I started to have feelings for you from the very beginning when you selflessly chose to help Chloe. Later I heard about your past from your sister, and I've always felt heartbroken for what you went through. And then, seeing Isabelle come to find you, and witnessing the harm she and Ethan did to you, I only wish I could have met you sooner. Sincere, choose me. My feelings for you are pure, without any ulterior motives, only genuine admiration and affection. I swear I will never ever let you down. Hearing Victoria say these words, my eyes stung with unshed tears. Victoria, you make me sound so good, but how are you not also a ray of light in my life? Victoria's face lit up with joy. So, does that mean? I smiled and nodded. Yes, let's be together. No, a sharp female voice cut through the air. Isabelle had entered the room in a wheelchair. She had been recovering in this hospital ever since Ethan stabbed her. Isabelle was so frantic that her hands were raw from maneuvering the wheelchair, but she paid it no mind, her eyes fixed on me. I won't allow it, Sincere. How can you be with someone else? We're not divorced yet. You're still my husband in name. You can only be mine. I couldn't help but smile wryly. Isabelle, do you really think a piece of paper can bind me to you? Besides, I've already filed a petition with the court for a contested divorce. The fact that you drugged me and conspired with Ethan to steal my life's work is more than enough for a judge to determine who is the at-fault party in this marriage. No, you can't. Isabelle was completely panicked. She threw her arms around my waist, trembling as she spoke. Sincere, you can't divorce me. You're mine. How can you leave me? Didn't we vow at our wedding to love each other for a lifetime? Hearing those words from her lips was utterly laughable, but now all I felt for her was disgust. I didn't even have the energy to argue with her. I simply pried her hands off me and pressed the nurse call button to have her removed. Victoria's hospital stay was only due to overexertion. After a few days of rest, she was discharged. There was another reason she was in a hurry to leave. She wanted to plan our wedding. Neither of us was young, and once we had confirmed our feelings for each other, we quickly met with both our families to discuss marriage and set a date. On our wedding day, Victoria walked towards me in a flowing white gown. Chloe, as our flower girl, scattered handfuls of rose petals into the air. Amidst this shower of petals, I firmly took the hand Victoria extended to me. This time, I believe my happiness will last forever.